I've been freed. I do. I feel freed because you know what's happening on these committees? You see, we have basically a tyrannically controlled government right now. The Democrats, record number of Republicans voted for President Trump. Republican voters support him still. The party is his. It doesn't belong to anybody else.
Marjorie Taylor Greene there, defiant as always, just hours after the House representatives voted to boot the QAnon supporter turned congresswoman from the committees that she served on.
None of us are perfect.
Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene changing her tune on the House floor.
Absolutely happened.
Walking back some of her most bizarre and false conspiracy theories.
It's odd there's never any evidence shown for a plane in the Pentagon.
But stopping short of an explicit apology.
These were words of the past, and these things do not represent me.
In the end, it wasn't enough for House Democrats who voted to boot her from committee assignments, effectively muting the freshman lawmaker's power to advance legislation in Congress. 11 House Republicans supporting the move.
Serving on a committee is not a right, it is a privilege.
Videos and posts on social media showing Greene suggesting House Speaker Nancy Pelosi should be executed. In another, Greene holding an assault rifle next to a picture of her Democratic colleagues with the words, "The squad's worst nightmare."
I urge my colleagues to look at that image and tell me what message you think it sends. They are people.
Congresswoman Jahana Hayes, who represents Newtown, Connecticut, the scene of the Sandy Hook school shooting, announcing the final vote, responding directly to Greene's past comments suggesting mass school shootings were staged.
In defense of my district, I vote for the babies who left for school 8 years ago and never returned home, and the teachers who died trying to protect them.
The move to punish Greene for QAnon-inspired conspiracy theories coming almost a month after false and baseless claims led to the January 6th insurrection, more than 180 rioters now charged. An ABC News investigation finding at least 19 have ties to extremist groups and at least a dozen support QAnon conspiracy theories. And for more, let's bring in our next guest to discuss. Zach Wamp, a former Republican congressman from Tennessee. He served in Congress from 1995 to 2011. Thank you for the time. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Well, what's it been like sitting back, seeing how the election played out, the reaction from now, the former president, those who got behind the claims of a stolen election, the events that unfolded on the 6th, and then the choices the Republican Party seemingly has made here in the last 48 hours, culminating with the vote that came down on Ms. Greene?
Well, my perspective is a little different because I came up 40 years ago through the Republican Party at every level, working in the precincts, young Republicans, chairman of the party. And then after a lot of party activity, I ran for Congress and lost and ran again and won. And I served 16 years, ran for governor. So I've seen a lot. Trump, you know, he came in, did a lot of good things and a lot of bad things, but he's a disruptor. He didn't even know the process. He didn't even know the Constitution. So he did what he did. Now he's gone. The Republican Party is having a conversation with itself on where we're going to go. And the conservative movement really needs to come out of this stronger, not weaker. And I would say in my 40 years plus of involvement, we have the strongest bench that we've ever had. We have young, dynamic military leaders, a talented freshman class. And so the question is, looking in the windshield, not the rearview mirror, which of these young leaders is going to lead the Republican Party and the conservative movement going forward? Or are all the old people going to squash them out?
But I look at one younger, I'll be generous on that one, but Adam Kinzinger, who also served in the military. And, you know, he's looking around saying, wait a minute, Liz Cheney had the guts to vote her conviction. No one will ever confuse her with being some liberal. She's got not only the pedigree for it, but the voting record to back it up. And then they look at Marjorie Greene, and you heard the same stories I did. You probably know some of the people in the room. Greene got a standing O from roughly half the people, reportedly, for those people in the room. And Liz Cheney was being forced to answer for herself because she said, wait a minute, what Trump did on January 6th was un-American. And I guess my question is, for you, these just aren't names. These are faces and people you know. What happened to the Big Ten of Reagan and the idea you could have different ideas? And how did a Marjorie Taylor Greene become the new face of the party? And it ain't the media who's saying that. McCarthy he gave her a pass when he didn't to, let's say, the Stephen Kings of the world not that many years ago.
Yeah, and that's why the party needs to take leadership on these matters, like they did with Steve King. Don't let the other party dictate who stays on their committees and who doesn't. Do it yourself. But listen, our party better be big enough for the Liz Cheneys of the world. Otherwise, we're going to lose, because you can't have a fringe party that actually tolerates conspiracy theories that you know are false. Liz Cheney, I think, almost got a mandate, a strong majority. The Matt Gaetz of the world, who said she was going to be defeated, they were way off base. You know, the average person knows in Congress right and wrong. Now, were they intimidated, a lot of them, into doing things that they really didn't believe in? Yes. Is that a sign of weakness? Yes. Should all 147 of the people that objected to the Electoral College be held accountable at some point by the voters? I think so, but that's up to the district, the people in those districts.
For a sports analogy, I've never been one of those who, when they see their athletic heroes towards the end of their career and they won't hang it up voluntarily, people say, oh, you should, retire. You don't want to tarnish the legacy, or they don't want to see them go to another team to finish a career. People should quit on their own merits. And the same thing, I think, goes with, it's really easy to go tell an elected official, hey, you know what? Go stick your neck out here, even if it costs you a primary challenger to lose. Vote on principle. But the math for me, Zach, that I didn't get was McCarthy came out the night of the 6th. And while he didn't go as far as I would have liked to say, we had 60 courts say that we had a free and a fair election. Let's certify the thing after we almost got killed, for crying out loud. He at least said that the president had his fingerprints and responsibility because of his words on what happened that fateful day. And yet he turns around 48 hours later and he's hopping on a plane down to Mar-a-Lago. Republicans had a chance to give each other cover if they stood as a party to say, we went too far. Yes, he lost this election. Let's move on here, and let's not purge the party just that people happen to be critical of the president. He had that chance. McConnell seemingly went a step further. But is McCarthy going to look back and regret that he didn't go with his first instincts and get other Republicans to get on board with him instead of having to capitulate to the Greens of the world?
So McConnell's maturity, the fact that he's been around a long time and he is a savvy leader, showed up because he knew when he needed to shift. He knew it was over and it was time to absolutely just tell the truth. McCarthy is a political person, period. I mean, he is a politico. And he's made an assessment that, in the middle of Trump losing, we picked up seats. I would argue we did because the country's still right of center and they agree with us on the issues, but a big slice of them grew weary of Trump, just Trump every day. And so he's miscalculating if he thinks that hanging on to Trump is going to allow him to win the majority in 2 years.
Well, it's going to be a very interesting next chapter in political history. Congressman, appreciate you giving me a few minutes today. Thank you.
My pleasure.